We are living in the lucky era. Some might say the smart era. For example, we are one of the most educated group of people, hyperconnectivity. We have never been in a better position for evidence-based decision-making, and yet exactly the opposite seems to be true. There is increasing rise of conspiracy theories and fake news. What's going on?
Erin Brockovich, Alex Jones today ordered to pay $1 billion US by saying the Sandy Hook massacre was a hoax. What is going on?
Social media can be a real double-edged sword, if you will. And for me, I have conversations with my kids and friends, and they'll say something to me, and I'm like, where did you possibly hear that? Social media, Facebook, something on Twitter, and I'm like, you need to not. You can't believe everything you read anymore. You just can't. And I think at the individual level, it's incumbent upon you to have family conversations, to vet what it is you've read, and follow up and do your own research on the validity of that story or that information and whether it's true or not. And you have to be careful with social media. They just throw stuff out there just to get a reaction out of you. So again, for me, a lot of things is internally, whether I'm gonna respond to it or not. I've learned that nothing changes till you change. So I make it my job, and I have a conversation with my family, my adult children, to make it their job to just not believe everything that's out there on social media. And if something strikes you and you just want to respond, think about it, ask some questions, have a conversation, and thoroughly vet what it is you think is going on.
Saba, there's more to it, isn't there, than this, though, of course. You're a journalist, and we see with people like Alex Jones the followers that they can get. When he called Sandy Hook massacre a hoax, the number of his followers, the people who listened to his programs, increased. So how do we mediate? Where is fake news? What is real news? And why the attraction to these conspiracies?
I think the critical point is lack of diversity in the media. And usually white people write our story. This is a problem. And in the history of my work in Australia, in a very good faith, when I brought to attention of my editor that her white male journalist stolen my work, or they didn't pay me, or there was some lack of transparency around my byline and payment. They just changed the language. Before they were calling me extraordinary, just the star, and then the conversation completely after that, raising that concern, changed and reduced me, put question onto the quality of my work. And this kind of action, practice, push more people of color and people with the life experience in the background, because the media is using us only for case study. I realize that the media only wants me as a handbag to enhance the white journalist's work. They don't want my expertise, they don't value my life experiences. And the time that those journalists were training, I was spending in wandering and displacement. And I remember, for example, if I shift to refugee issues, their journalists ask me, can you get consent from this refugee? Can you just connect us with that refugee? And then, nothing. I was not owner of my own work. And I think this is our legitimate rights to progress, to develop. But there is a roof for democracy and freedom that does not allow us to break this glass ceiling to go above. And I think, Western feminists constantly talking about gender issue, but let's change the conversation from gender to gender racism. For example, let me to ask you how many women of color working in the leadership and management in ABC, in The Guardian, in SBS and elsewhere.
Not enough is the answer, but you've been...
And about Iranian, for example, New York Times wrote that Iranian is just protesting for economic issues. In one of the reports, Guardian reported they are seeking for reforms, but they are not looking at the chant in the street. People say Khamenei is a murderer. His leadership is not illegitimate. People say this is not a protest. It is a revolution. We don't want Islamic Republic.
Well, Saba, your voice has certainly been...
And let me to tell this, one of the media outlets that I pitched to them, they said to me, I said, you know, I was in these protests. I know how it looked like. I have been beaten. And they said, no, we covered sufficiently. And then when I get back to the coverage and I saw all white male, as always, they are defining how it looked like to be an Iranian woman live under Sharia law.
Saba, thank you. Your voice has certainly been heard this evening.